the WhatsApp group, and then we can start. WhatsApp.
He's making a noise. No, you
No, you don't need to do it. Sit. Yeah, sit.
No.
Okay. All right. All right. This works. Not going to be head on straight, but that's fine. Okay. Last time we actually left off with Rav Asher Weiss. That's where we left. We were in the middle of his tshuva. In fact, we didn't have we had a missing piece. So actually, I've got here, if anybody wants, I've got the missing pieces. I need one though, so I've only got 2 copies. But I actually sent out a PDF. Anybody wants? I sent out a PDF online on the WhatsApp group. It's actually a set of 3 tshuvot in the first volume of Minchas Asher, where he deals with electricity issues in a very aggressive and pretty comprehensive manner. And it's got the missing parts that we didn't have last time. So we'll go over that this time. Just give you some background information because it's actually going to be really important later. The actual question that he was dealing with was the following. Somebody wrote to him, a couple of rabbis actually wrote to him. They sent him a contract with the following situation. They were dealing with a door in either on a security base or just in a person's home, that in order to open the door, you needed to use a RFID chip in a card. Okay, what that means is that an RFID chip in a card. Okay, so you have like a regular, hotel card. Inside the hotel card, there's no battery in the hotel card, but there is a small radio transmitter, which when it's in proximity, not every hotel, actually there's probably, most hotels it doesn't work like this, but in some security posts it works like this. When it's in proximity to the receiver, basically it imparts electricity to the card, and it turns on the RFID chip, which is a radio transmitting chip, which in turn communicates with the receiver and opens the door. Okay? It's just that's all.
Unlike the doors where you slide the card into the door.
Yeah, so the one where you slide the card, that might be a little bit different because then it reads the bar. But this is something else. This is actually similar to what I have at work. I don't have my card with me, but you just kind of put it close to the receiver, and it registers based on radio waves, and it opens the door. Okay.
And not only that, but I think the hotels, for example, will keep a record of where and when, how exactly what time the door has been opened.
Yeah, 100%.
After security.
Yeah, 100%, and also, it's a key lock. So the question is, can you use such a device on Shabbos? Okay, so this was Be'ikar for army bases, where sometimes it's for security reasons, but sometimes they put these devices on the entrance to the mess hall, to the cafeteria. There's no security situation there. It's an easy way to manage access in and out. But you need to eat on Shabbos, so you have to get into the cafeteria. So do they have to turn that off on Shabbos? Can firm soldiers use it, or should they just eat in their rooms? What should they do? So 2 rabbis, we actually know the names of the rabbis, even though Rav Asher Weiss doesn't publish them. One is Rav Dror Fixler, and one is Rav Eli Reif. I'm nearly 99% certain that these are the 2 that wrote the letter to him, for reasons that we'll see later. And they had the opinion that they thought that it was okay for a number of reasons. One of the sticking points, though, was the fact that there's these little lights that will turn on as you do it. Right? Now, these lights are kind of incidental to what's happening, but they're sure going to turn on, and you're aware they're going to turn on, and there's a purpose to the lights. So they wrote to Rav Asher Weiss, and they said, we don't think there's a problem with these lights, because anyways, they're LED lights, and LED lights don't get hot, and therefore even just turning them on is not an issue, because what are you doing? You're not doing anything. Nothing's actually happening mibchinat halacha. So Rav Asher Weiss jumped in, and we saw the beginning of the tshuva last time. He says, I got your kontrus, I got your booklet, and I don't agree with even a single word of what you wrote. That's what he writes to them. And he goes on and he explains what his problem with it is. And in essence, what he says is, he's from very harif language over there. He says something really striking. He says, Kilo bat kol yotzeit me'shamayim, that electricity is forbidden on Shabbos. This is dorot. We've known this generations. We've decided that we're not going to use electricity on Shabbos. That's A. But then he comes up with a chiddush about why. You remember, we dealt with this already, right? We saw the Chazon Ish says the problem is bona, something to do with the circuit or with the live wires. We saw that the Beis Yitzchak says that the problem is molid, that you're infusing electricity into the object. We saw that Rosh Zalman Auerbach wasn't convinced by either of these until he said it's mitam minhag, because sometimes it's asur, midoraita, meaning the usage of the electricity, the appliance itself, and sometimes it's not, and we can't tell, so we're going to forbid usage across the board. Fine. Comes along Rav Asher Weiss, and he says every single conscious use of electricity, it doesn't even matter whether you're turning it off or turning it on, is going to be asur midoraita because of the malacha of makeh b'patish. Now, Rosh Zalman Auerbach brought up makeh b'patish already. Remember, makeh b'patish is when you finish off an object, right? You put in the last hammer blow, put in the last nail, put in the last screw, you put in the last hammer blow. That's literally what it is. So Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach was dealing with the idea that, maybe we should say that when you turn on a light, you're finishing the light. And he dismissed that out of hand, Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach. He said that's silly.
Maybe you're closing the circuit?
No, he was talking about something. He was saying that maybe you could say that when you get a computer and you turn it on for the first time, or even every time, the computer is broken until you turn it on, and then you make it into a computer. But he rejected that for many reasons, because you turn it on and off, because that's not called creating it, it's called usage. If you pick up a hammer and you bang with it, you didn't make it into a hammer. That's just how you use it. So Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach rejected that. But don't worry, that's not what Rav Asher Weiss meant. When Rav Asher Weiss said that it's makeh b'patish, he meant something totally different, something totally new. He quotes a Yerushalmi. This is in the tshuva that we have. If you want to look inside, you can. It's on the second page of the tshuva. He says, he quotes the Yerushalmi. The Yerushalmi, I'll read it to you again. Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish, Avdin Havya Bahada Pirka Tlat Shanen Uplug. They were working on Malachos of Shabbos for 3.5 years. And almost every single action that they examined, they were able to fit into one of 39 boxes for each of the 39 melachot. If you have a PDF that I sent out, it's on the second page over there. What?
Only one page.
The PDF that I sent out?
It's not Minchat Asher.
Oh no, it's only the first page.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Then I sent it out wrong on my from my device. Okay, well it's in the published stuff, and part of it is in what I sent out. I'll resend it later if you guys want to see it. They're important shuvas. So he basically says that you know what? It might be on the first page over there. No, it's on the second page over there. Kuf Dalet. So he says that Rav Shimon, Reish Lakish, and Rav Yochanan were sitting around, and every single time somebody would bring them something, they would be able to say, okay, that's Zoreah, that's Boneh, that's Bishul, that's Borer, something like that. And then when they couldn't figure it out, you know what they did? They said, that's makeh b'patish. That sounds crazy. It sounds totally arbitrary. What are the rabbis doing? So Rav Asher Weiss says, yeah, it's a chidush atzum. It seems like a chidush, but he says, what does it mean? What it means is as follows: the rabbis understood that the forbidden actions on Shabbos have one common denominator between them. They are all creative acts. They're constructive acts. And by the way, when an act is not constructive, when it's destructive, even if it fits into one of the categories of the malachot, it's not asur midaraita. If it's mekalkel, then it's not asur midaraita. So for example, an example of, let's say you cooked something and you burnt it instead of actually making it better. Guess what? You didn't violate, you don't have to bring a chatas for that. You didn't violate nisur daraita because you burnt it. You didn't cook it.
Before it was burnt, it was probably
Let's say it was already cooked. Let's say it was already cooked, and then, well, if it's already cooked, then you wouldn't be able to be mavashel, it wouldn't be bishul anyways. But you can come up with an example. Oh, if you
Overcook. Overcook the food.
you know what? If you set fire to something and destroy it, so potentially that's only going to be asur midarabanan because it's mekalkel. You're not actually doing anything creative. So the rabbi said,
You put the last brick in a house. You break the brick whilst you're doing it.
you made the house though. I don't know. It's complicated, I guess.
Well, it's not coming.
Yeah. But if
Switching off the light.
yeah. So in general, keyboy, we talked about this last time. In general, putting out a fire is a destructive act because you're getting rid of the fire. And it's only considered constructive when it's for the sake of relighting. It's an amazing thing that most people don't realize, that the only time you're actually over midaraita on kibui, on extinguishing on Shabbos, is if you put out a fire in order to be able to relight it. So the minhag from some women, I don't think this is a very common minhag anymore. Minhag of some women on Erev Shabbos is that they light the candles and then they put them out. Then they make the bracha and they relight them. They singe them because it makes it easier to light it afterwards. If you singe a wick, then it makes it easier to relight it. So that was actually what they did in the Beit HaMikdash. That's the keyboard from the Beit HaMikdash. They would put something out in order to be able to relight it. Be that as it may, what?
Relight it after Shabbat is coming.
No. Relight the purpose of keyboy, real keyboy on Shabbat of extinguishing is so that you can relight it. Meaning that's what the malacha is forbidding. Extinguishing for the sake of relighting. Extinguishing stam, like because you don't want your house to burn down, is not asur midaraita. It's not. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'akol niyeh b'dvaro.
That was on YouTube.
Dafka live on YouTube. No, Dafka live on YouTube you can answer. But the recording, you shouldn't answer.
That's really that's curious.
I was going to say that most people who are live are here.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
There's one person. Who's that?
Don't answer.
Who's that? Who is that? Let's see. I can't see.
He's the lazy
All right,
guy.
we'll find out later who it is.
Yeah,
I
we
think it's
want to know
Avram.
who the person is.
No, I assume it's Avram because he said he was going to listen to it. All right, anyways. Now, getting back to the point. So Rav Weiss comes along and he says, import that and you say electricity is clearly a creative act. Right? Turning on a light, it's mind-blowing what happens is you're turning on an electric light bulb, when you're turning on a computer, when you're turning on your coffee maker. It's amazing what's happening over there. The millennia of development, of human development that goes into just flicking a switch and having a light bulb turn on, especially if it's LED, is mind-blowing. Of course, it's creative, and therefore, Rav Weiss says, Makeh b'patish. That's his argument. All right? Now, we're going to see that there is a flip side to this. But that's his argument, and that's his response to these rabbis. He says that any use of electricity is going to be Makeh b'patish. That's his argument. And I pointed out to a few of my rebbeim and peers, I said, this is an amazing thing, because this has already been decided. Like, Rosh Hashanah Zalman Auerbach didn't say this, the Minchas Yitzchak, the Beis Yitzchak didn't say this, the Chazon Ish didn't say this. So Rav Weiss, how did he get off saying this? So one of my rabbis, he said, he has a lot of self-confidence. What do you? And he does. If you've ever heard him speak, you know that he does have a lot of self-confidence.
It's not completing action. Because you want something to happen, it's going to happen, and therefore you've now completed it.
Okay, but you wouldn't say that for completing a salad, right? Meaning most things you wouldn't say that for. He's saying because this is an extreme case of creativity, and Makeh b'patish is apparently the receptacle of all creative acts. It's the quintessential creative act for it, maybe because of the point that you're making, and he wants to claim that electricity falls under that category. Okay. He ends with Yikabel na divrei Eila ketochacha megula va'ava mesuteret. You should accept this as open rebuke, but a hidden love, which is a language actually that the Ramban uses about the Ibn Ezra when he takes him. I don't want to say takes him out of the woodshed, but that's when he takes him. Okay, so basically he says you really shouldn't. You shouldn't, make Rav Weiss, and we're going to get to some of the other ramifications of his position. Before we do that, I want to return to our two rabbis. Because the reason why... Yeah, he spoke a few times in the Kola. The reason why he is bringing this up is because he was written to by these two rabbis, right? So where did they get the self-confidence to write such a thing to Rav Weiss? It's okay to turn on LED lights. So this was actually published in a journal called Emunat Itecha. There was actually a correspondence between Rav Eli Reif, who wrote an article about this, then Rav Nachum Rabinovich, who's the Rosh Hashiva of Ma'ale Adumim, and then there was another letter by Rav Rosen, who is the Zatzal, who was the founder and head of Tzomet. That's right. And then Rav Yaakov Ariel. And I want to read to you, if you have in the WhatsApp, the last share that we did, so there was an extra couple of sheets that I sent. It was a Word document, and it has some English stuff in there. So I'm going to read to you from Rav Nachum Rabinovich wrote. So he says, It is self-evident that if a person performs one of the 39 malachot using electricity, such as grinding with an electric grinder and the like, the one who uses it is liable biblically. Okay, so far so good. However, some use electricity for goals which are neither nor resemble malachot. The use of electricity, even where the electric currents are closed, when no actions defined as malacha are performed, is definitely not forbidden biblically, but there is room to forbid rabbinically because of weekday activity. So he says there is no isur daraita at all of using electricity, of turning it on, of turning it off itself, but there might be a problem of what's called uvdin dechol. We'll get back to that in a second.
That doesn't make the device muksa.
If you would not be allowed to use the device on Shabbos, then it would be muktzah. If you would be allowed to use it, then it's not muktzah. So that's kind of a circular issue. In the past, when electricity was beginning to spread, the great authorities saw a danger for keeping Shabbat because electricity could be used to do all the 39 malachot. However, in our days, electricity has been applied to different usages that are fully automated without human hands at all. Now the question is, how much can we ascribe these actions to human beings when they are fully automated? Okay, so if Nachum Rabinovich is now wondering, not about the turning on or turning off electricity, but rather about the usage of appliances, even that do biblical violations, but they are automated. In other words, they don't actually require direct human intervention on Shabbat.
So you're not talking about setting a timer then?
What?
You're not talking about setting a timer because that's...
No, not talking about setting it. Well, I mean, in theory, talking about setting a timer, but that's boring. Let's talk about more interesting things. Let's say watering the grass. Let's say turning on lights when you walk by them. What?
Watching TV.
Well, watching TV may have other issues, but yes, in theory.
What do you do when you walk past
Watching your shit.
a car that's got a sensor on it?
A car that has a sensor on it? What is the car going to do when it has a sensor? The
No,
alarm's
you
going
walk
to...
past it and the sensor goes off.
And then what happens? The alarm goes off.
Yeah.
All right, nobody wants that, but yeah, okay, fine. Well, we'll deal with that too. So he says, I already wrote in Siach Nachum that there must be a limit to what we can ascribe action to people when they are fully automated. However, it is clear that the limit must be when the person acting is separated from the system he's acting on, where he cannot be considered a part of the system. Additionally, the action must be noticeable to the senses. Only then can you forbid, even rabbinically. However, if a person doesn't touch the electrical system at all, and does no specific act to initiate the system, and it happens totally by itself, how can one even think that it is forbidden, especially when none of the 39 malachot are being done? This is even if you appreciate and benefit from it. Okay, so what does this mean for us? Okay, you tell me, what's a good example of this? Walking past a security light, I assume what you mean is a motion sensor that will turn on a light as you walk past it.
What do you do with the one
So
by
you
the
say
shul?
that would fall under his rubric, you don't touch it, you're not anywhere near it, and
But you are setting it off.
what? You are setting it off, but you do no specific act to initiate the system. You merely walk by it. You merely walk by it.
Walking by is not a specific act.
No, if you were, I think, Rav Nabinovich would say, that if you went like this, then the light turned on, then that would be a specific act. So you're not watching on YouTube. Now nobody is. We're streaming live to nobody. All
What I'm
right.
saying is, what do you do with the
If
the light
someone
by the
streams
shul
live on YouTube, does it
goes-
make a sound?
that goes on and off? The light by the stairs going down to the hall, that light goes on and off on its own.
Which light on that?
There's one light there.
Here?
That's a motion
Have you
sense.
spoken
Yes.
about the benefit of
Yeah.
something like that happening?
What do you mean?
So you walk past and you benefit from the light that's now, as
Right.
opposed to you don't benefit from the light.
So Rav Rabinovich seems to say that even if you benefit from it, it's fine. Because you're not doing a specific act to it. All you're doing is walking by, the light will turn on, you know that the light will turn on, but it turns on through no specific act that you do. All you're doing is walking, which is a normal thing to do. You would walk the same way if there was no light there. And therefore he thinks that there is no problem with it whatsoever, even if it's an incandescent light
Is
bulb.
that how we pass it?
Oh no, hold on. Well, let's survey first. What?
Microphone.
What about a microphone?
That's a whole different.
Oh, a microphone. You're saying let's say you're talking, and the microphone picks you up. I would think that he would say that. Yeah, I mean, I don't see a difference. If there's an electric system that's going on,
Yeah.
and you just
Same as a camera.
talk.
Video camera.
All you're doing is talking,
Screen.
and something's picking it up,
Video camera, that's right.
and
Put them in
yeah,
Yad
video camera is another great example, right? You're just walking in your house, and
No,
things
put
going
them
on.
in Yad Lebanim on a Friday night, people, dirty kids are walking past and
Sure.
they film the kids doing
CCTV
acts, hitting kids or hitting other kids. They've got all hidden cameras in Yad Lebanim.
I don't think that's what the hidden cameras are for, but okay.
Oh,
I mean, there's hidden cameras everywhere. There's hidden cameras everywhere. Yes, that.
In our shul in Brooklyn, where they had video cameras
Right,
in maybe a dozen different cameras,
right,
and someone said to the Rav, I'm walking into the shul and I'm being videotaped.
Right.
Walking into the shul, am I being
Right.
over on something? And he said, your walking in isn't sitting with the camera. The
Okay.
camera is on 24 hours, 24/7.
okay.
And based on that, the three Rabbanim that I knew in our
Right.
shul all said it's fine.
Right. So I guess over there, you have to wonder what the malacha
It's on
is.
the whole time, exactly.
So you have to wonder what the malacha is. So if the malacha that we're concerned with is turning on the camera, then of course, but obviously that's not what the malacha is. So the malacha to be concerned about over there would be something like kotev, like you're writing, inscribing, by making your picture show up on the thing. Now there, it might be important to realize if it's a closed circuit camera which is only recording to a tape, is there actually a monitor somewhere which is actually displaying it? Is anybody watching the monitor? Does anybody care? But yeah, I think in most cases there's not really much of a problem over there. By the way, in Yerushalayim, almost all of Yerushalayim is
Even the Kotel, I
videotaped
think,
everywhere,
were-
which is why a lot of
Everywhere else,
Haredim
right.
don't actually go outside. In Mei Shearim, a lot of people don't go outside on Shabbos. They just don't go because they know that they're being taped and they're concerned for that. So Rav Nachum Rabinovich is very far on that side, and he gives a kudos to these two rabbis who came up, who say that it's okay to use this RFID chip, because he says that what's happening is there's no electrical use being created. Because he makes two arguments here. One was the automation thing that he was saying, but the other is that there's no malacha happening when you use this card. There's no malacha. It's not turning anything on, except for the light. But the light is something that happens kind of on the side.
Would it make a difference if the door, you could access the door manually? Let's say you can, but it
You
opens
could.
for you.
Okay.
Okay. The fact that it opens for you, you still have the.
You're talking about a situation where like there's a motion sensor door, like
Yeah.
opening to a store,
But
and
you
then
could actually
you
open
step
it.
in and you were willing to do that. I mean, it's an interesting point that you could do it otherwise. I'm not sure how relevant it is.
I mean, the fact that you can open it manually,
Right.
okay, and the fact that you walk through and your RFID chip picks it up, as opposed
Right.
to maybe going on the side and opening up the door from the side, then the fact that you're walking through with an RFID chip is nothing. It's inconsequential. It's not really what you want to do. You can actually go and open it manually.
Right. So I mean, Rabinovich
I used to work in
might
an
agree with
outlet
that.
shop where they had a door with
A sensor.
red, yeah. So what I used to do is asking on the Friday night to give me a key to the other
Right.
door, so I go in and
Right.
out.
Right. By the way, Eli, the last line over here is this is even if you appreciate and benefit from it. That's his last line over there. Now, that is, I would say, on one side of the spectrum. Okay. Now, who's on the other side of the spectrum? So in that same periodical, so of Yaakov Ariel, who is the chief rabbi of Ramat Gan, and also of Machon HaTorah Va'aretz. Anybody buy like a Meiser Sheni token, right? You get in the mail where you can buy a token for Meiser Sheni from Machon HaTorah Va'aretz. Okay, it's a good idea because then then all you have to do is make the bracha, and it counts on the coin that's somewhere else, and you have to keep it in your house. You don't have to
I
worry
heard
about
the
it.
concept, but I didn't know that
Yeah.
it was an actual.
So he's the rabbi for that whole organization, Machon HaTorah Va'aretz. He's the head rabbi of the whole organization. So he says he was also up for chief rabbi. He was supposed to be the Dati Leumi candidate,
Uh-huh.
but he's too old. So they wanted to change the rules for him. They didn't. So it seems to me that the opinion of the Gaon Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach is the accepted law according to most authorities, namely that using an electrical appliance involves a rabbinic prohibition unless it performs a biblical malacha, and then it's biblical. And then he goes and he says, okay, he was worried that if these appliances would be permitted, then Shabbat would, God forbid, become a weekday. He understood with the breadth of his knowledge, the knowledge of the Torah, that the Torah would presumably not agree to permit use of electrical appliances. Therefore, even those who disagree with the Chazon Ish, that it's not D'oraita, then that would mean this only with a single. Hold on one second. Yeah, this is only with a single incidental use. However, it is possible. Look at this argument that using many electrical appliances on Shabbat would involve a biblical prohibition based on what the Ramban wrote in his commentary to the Torah. The Ramban wrote in his commentary on the Torah that we tend to think that, what's Asr on Shabbat? The 39 Melachot, right? So for example, if I carry a tissue from inside my house to outside my house, and I happen to live in a Reshut HaRabim, and there's no Eruv, well, there wouldn't be an Eruv if it's a real Reshut HaRabim, right? And I just carry it through the threshold of my door, and it's a tissue. What happens now? $5,000, I've got to buy a first grade steer, bring a korban chatat, I violated Shabbat midoraita, right? But what happens if I carry my couch? I want my couch to go from my main floor upstairs. I want to keep my couch in my bedroom now. And I carry my couch up the stairs on Shabbat.
No problem.
No problem, right? No problem. The Ramban says, Asur midoraita. Asur midoraita. There's a mitzvah of Shabbaton. You have to rest on Shabbat. And that doesn't just mean the 39 Malachot, there's also a spirit of Shabbat, and that's Daraita as well. The spirit of Shabbat is also Midoraita, and you can violate Shabbat even if you don't do the 39 Malachot. So Rav Yaakov Ariel, that's why he finds this as the real source for not doing business on Shabbat. Business, theoretically, right? Business, going to work on Shabbat, there's no problem with it as long as you don't do Malacha. But Ramban says no, it's Asur Midoraita, because it's a violation of Shabbaton.
Sure.
That's what the Ramban writes. And he's quoted, he's quoted Halakha, but he's quoted.
Shabbat opens up a whole new avenue of...
It's subjective. It's somewhat subjective. So you have to subject yourself. You have to figure it out. So one example, the example the Ramban gives is going to work, is doing work on Shabbat. Doing your business on Shabbat, he considers Asur Midoraita. So that's extended.
Reading the secular newspaper?
No, I don't think that would be a violation of Shabbaton. I don't see why that would be a violation of Shabbaton. Why? Because
You're upsetting.
Oh, Seder. That's okay. But
that means every Rav, every community Rav is Mechal Shabbat.
no, you prepare before Shabbat. It's spiritual work. It's different. So what does he say? So he says, look, this is specifically true for our generation. As technology has developed and moves forward, and even during the week, most people do not toil and work with their bodies, but rather they press buttons, listen, talk, receive decisions. All is done, receive decisions. That's a classic English translation of Hebrew, right? Lokeach achlatot, receive decisions. And all is done with virtually no work, but with psychological stress. How lucky we are, how good is our portion, how great is this gift that the Holy and Blessed Be He gave us, who gives us Shabbat. And therefore, it seems to me that even the authorities who hold that electrical appliances are only forbidden rabbinically, we should not be lenient regarding their use unless there is great need, and with other reasons to be lenient, and with responsible and deliberate decision-making, so that we shall not, God forbid, breach the floodgates of the holiness of Shabbat, which is the foundation of all of Israel's Torah. In other words, Rav Yaakov Ariel is all the way on the other side of the spectrum. He's the bulwark of Shabbat versus electricity, basically saying that, first of all, we have to be really careful about what we don't permit, because it could snowball. And second of all, mass use of these kinds of devices will inevitably lead to a degradation of Shabbat, with like 20 different devices which technically are okay, and use them on Shabbat. He considers your Mechalel Shabbat, basically, Doraita. That's what he thinks. That's Rav Yaakov Ariel.
I agree with it.
If you line up like 20 different devices, they all are automated, and they're all sensors, so that they would technically be permitted.
Like send out your television to watch a sports match on Shabbat.
Yeah.
Technically,
Things like
put
that,
on a
yeah.
time switch and whatever. There's
Imagine.
no, but it won't stop there.
But even more, he's saying that you line those up, and ultimately it just leads to an actual degradation of the spirit of Shabbat, and therefore it should be forbidden for that reason.
I was in the Shachat's house where they walked past the TV, and by accidentally the TV went on.
Yeah. Okay. I have lots of stories like that. Look, there was one family where we were talking about this the other day. There was one family, they had Alexa in the house.
Yeah.
They had Alexa in the house, and they were talking about it at the Shabbat table. You've heard this? They were talking about the Shabbat table and to their guests, and they were explaining how it works. And one of the kids goes, yeah, all you have to do is say, Alexa, play Bohemian Rhapsody. And all of a sudden, They started playing because they didn't turn it off before Shabbat, and they didn't know what to do. Like, what do we do now, right?
On loop.
Yeah.
So you seem being
That's not even, by the way, that's not even the best story about Alexa. This is not about Shabbat, but you know what happened 2 Super Bowls ago?
No.
You don't know what happened?
Children.
2 Super Bowls ago, there was a
Oh, Sunday?
there was a Super Bowl, and during Super Bowl, they have all these commercials.
Sunday then.
Yeah, of course it was on Sunday. Yeah, it was on Sunday. It was nothing to do with Shabbat. There was a commercial for Amazon Alexa. Amazon, what's the actual device called? You say Alexa, but it's not called Alexa. It's called
Echo?
Echo. Yeah, Amazon Echo. And they were, demoing the usage of it. So they're like, you can order a pizza, and they go, Alexa, order me a pizza from Domino's. In 1 million households across
It
America,
was ordered because
a Domino's pizza was ordered to their house at that exact moment. It happened. It happened.
wow.
So Amazon fixed the glitch. I don't know how they fixed it, but they fixed it. But the next year, Google Nest, which is the same thing, they had a similar advertisement, and the same thing happened. To the owners of Google Nest, the same thing happened. So you got to be careful with these things. Okay, now I brought those two. Those are 2 sides of the spectrum, right? Rav Nachum Rabinovich, Rav Yaakov Ariel, and I think Rav Asher Weiss occupies in the middle. Why? Because when you go through his other tshuvas, okay, the other 2 tshuvas he shows the flip side of his argument. His argument is that it's makeh b'patish d'oraita, right? Bring it back. Makeh b'patish d'oraita when you do a creative act with electricity. But there is another condition, that is required to be met in order for something to be a violation of Shabbat. And that is called Melechet Machshevet. You go through Masechet Shabbat, so you encounter this concept, Melechet Machshevet. And what it means is that the Shabbat acts are all products of human intelligence. You have to be conscious of what you're doing. If you're not conscious of what you're doing, one example, if it's a davar she'eino mitkaven, if it's something you didn't intend to do and it's not clear, it's not absolutely clear that it's going to happen, then it's not a problem on Shabbat for it to happen. It's not a violation of Shabbat. There are other examples as well. Won't go through all of them, but it has to rise to the level of Melechet Machshevet. Rav Asher Weiss argues that many of the modern devices don't rise to that level for the simple reason that they require no thought. For example, he has numerous examples. If you want to look up, I'll resend the tshuva later. He has machshirei shmiya, right? Hearing aids, right? Nobody has any actual intention when they use hearing aids for anything to happen, right? It's a hearing aid. It goes on its own. People talk, and you stand there. There's no intention. Machshirei nitur. This is, he says, cholim hamushpazim b'machlakot letipul nimratz mechubarim b'machshirei nitur sheish lam tzag she'alav nirshamim kol simanei chayunim. These are life sensors, things that that monitor your body. Tirshom et zu mishtana idei neshima tnu'a u'ma'amad shel hacholeh. Breathing, movement, all kinds of things. What? Because if I move, my dofek is going to change, right? My heart rate might go up or might go down. So I'm not allowed. I have to sit still the whole Shabbat. Azikim elektronim. This is electronic handcuffs. Electronic handcuffs. Right,
Yeah,
basically, something you put on your leg
Yeah,
if you're on probation, right?
what's the guy's name?
That measures where you are. That measures where you are, like a GPS or anything like that, which they also have for some people who have dementia, right? So some people who have dementia, they put an ankle bracelet on them, and then there's an electronic fence that basically, if they go outside the fence, it sets off an alarm. So what, the person can't move? It's a GPS, basically. So he says, "Mizinei chamsan l'shipur hashena," sleep apnea machines. Sleep apnea machines. As you're breathing, it turns on actually, when you stop breathing, it turns on and forces you to breathe. I don't know how they work. I have a friend who uses it, but I don't know how they work exactly. Chayshani chomu tnu'ah. It says, "Barov batei malon sheba'olam nidlak." This is what we're talking about, right? Barov batei malon. In many hotels, Sheba'olam nidlaka or k'sha'adam nichnas l'cheder. Or light goes on when you come to the room. V'nichbe acharei zman shel kereva sha'ah. It turns off after about 15 minutes after leave. Shalayot hacheder reik mi'adam. Shomei Shabbat hamitarchim b'Shabbat b'batei malon eila makpidim shelo likanes lacheder ela acharei shemi me'ovdei malon b'hatachat adel v'nichnas lifneim. Most people are makpid not to go into the room until a non-Jew goes in first. אך אינם יודעים שכל תנועה שהם עושים בחדר נרשמת מבחינה אלקטרונית ומדי דקה ניתנת פקודה להפעיל את מערכות החשמל. But they don't realize that while they're in the room, it's still going. It's still, it's recognizing that they're still there and keeping the lights on. The מערכת is still working when they're in there.
They can't leave either, because when they leave, it goes off.
ולכן כאשר לא נרשמת
That's no problem.
ולכן כאשר לא נרשמת כל תנועה בחדר ובהיעדר פקודה במערכת הממוחשבת לא ניתנת פקודה הערכה וממילא כבה האור אחרי רבע שעה. ונשאלת השאלה, האם מותר לשהות ולנוע בחדר מכיוון שעל ידי תנועת האדם ניתנת פקודה להאריך את זרם החשמל? Can you stay there and keep moving when it's actually doing something in the מערכת? What are you going to do? Can you not even be in the room? Or do you have to, just sit there quietly?
In 20 years, every house
will
have the
100%. When I was in yeshiva, the rooms in my yeshiva were fancy schmancy. The yeshiva was fancy schmancy. And we had a motion sensor in the corner of the room, which didn't work most of the time, and it was supposed to be turned off on Shabbat. And one week, one of my roommates came back to the room late at night on Friday night, and we were all asleep, and he noticed that the light switched on when he came in. So he left the light of the motion sensor. So he left, and then he ran to the Rosh Yeshiva's house. It was 12 o'clock at night. He was still awake. Talked to him. And the Rosh Yeshiva said, it's better not to go in the room. And in the morning, what you should do is go outside the room and call everybody out. Tell everybody to get dressed as quickly as they can and then come out. Don't tell them about what's going on because we didn't know that the motion sensor was on. So, what you don't know can't hurt you, which is true in halakha in some cases. So, but we were kind of stubborn. And he was yelling at us, oh, guys, come on out. We're like, what are you talking about? What's going on? And we figured it out. We figured out what was going on, and I'll never forget. We said, okay, it's a motion sensor, but we've dealt with motion sensors in the past. I don't know. If we move really slowly and we get as low to the floor as we can, then it won't pick us up. Now, we had one guy in the room who was particularly big. He was particularly large. And he was just, I'll never forget it. He was on the floor trying to get dressed. As slow as he can, as low as he can. And all of a sudden we noticed the light went on. But now he said, okay, well, the light went on. But now, what do we want to do? We want to keep the light on. So we're all going like this now. Moving as quickly as we can, trying to keep the light on for as long as possible until we have to leave. We're all jumping around. Unbelievable. Now the question is that all for naught? Right? None of us actually cared about that light. None of us wanted the light. It didn't help us. It didn't matter to us at all.
In light of this.
So let's see. So he's left the question open, right? Now, what about telephonim cellularim? Okay, obviously doctors who walk around with telephones, that's fine. But he says, what am I interested in? He says, even if you don't use the phone, the klita, the reception of the phone is always changing. And on many phones, when he wrote this is probably true. Now it's not because our screens are off. But I remember flip phones, right? And it had a display that was always on, and it would show the bars. You could see the bars there. Fine. וככל שהטכנולוגיה מתקדמת מיום ליום, יהיו יותר ויותר מכשירים הדומים לכל הנ"ל. Technology will advance, and we'll have more and more devices like this. ויש לברר האם כאשר האדם גורם ללא כוונה לשינויים בזרימה החשמלית ולרישום האלקטרוני שיש בהם סגירת מעגלים זרים. When a person unintentionally causes the closing and the opening of circuits that are tiny, that you can't really notice them, שאין האדם יכול כלל לעקוב אחריהם, ובמאית של שנייה משתנים, and also it's happening so quickly and so it's invisible to the human eye. He says, ולעניות דעתי אין זה כלל בגדר מלאכה בשבת. This is not at all melacha on Shabbat. Mishum de'ein bazeh geder melacha klal, v'im mishum de'lo avi melechet machshevet. So it's because it's not melechet machshevet. It's not in the awareness of a human being while it's happening. V'nir od, ואחרי כל מה שנכתב ונתברר באיסור סגירת מעגלי חשמל בשבת, עיקרי הדרכים שלושה הם, מוליד, בונה, מכה בפטיש. So I have 3 ways. And he says, look, אם מצד מוליד, let's say we talk about מוליד. So נראה ברור דרק כשמוליד דבר חדש שהעין רואה והלב חומד. It has to be something that you notice, that you can see.
What is Molid again?
Molid is when you know, the electricity, well, the way that it's being used is that the electricity goes into the device and it's a new infusion that gives it almost like life. The case in the Gemara is when you infuse scent into a garment, which fundamentally changes the garment. So it's similar to that. We rejected this, but he says, let's say we wanted to apply it. I'm going to skip past the stuff that we already rejected. It says, Gam ledarki, according to me, שיש בזה מכה בפטיש משום חשיבות החיבור, נראה פשוט בכל הנ"ל אין מכה בפטיש. I don't think there's מכה בפטיש in these cases. All of these cases, including the cell phone, including the lights, including the מערכת חשמל, rather. It's not the lights themselves, it's the מערכת חשמל. ובאמת, אם מצד מכה בפטיש באנו אליו, מובן ביותר דאין גדר מלאכה כלל במה שנעשה כאילו מאליו, ללא כוונה וללא מעשה מסוים, ואין בו כל קיום ותוחלת. If there's no מעשה of, a direct action, שהרי כבר כתוב הפוסקים, דשני מכה בפטיש משם מלאכות וכל שאין בו כוונה ותכלית, אין בו גדר מלאכה כלל. If there's no intention, it doesn't count. והנה מי שיכול להימנע מכל שימוש, if you can stay away from it, then that's great. But, if you can't stay away from it, then he thinks there's no problem with it. Okay, so where does that leave us with Rav Asher Weiss? So for Rav Asher Weiss, he basically says that any case where the electrical system is happening, but there's no overt effect of the electrical system, there's no problem at all. So I brought this up with the smartwatch on Shabbos a week and a half ago, where I managed to turn off the step tracker. At least I didn't manage to turn off the step tracker. The step tracker is still on, but the display is not showing it, even though it's actually being recorded by the watch, but I can't see it and I don't really care about it. So that's a perfect example of that, where there is a Marachet Chashmal going on, there's a system there, but it's irrelevant to me. Another example of that is the Madadei Mayim. And every time you turn on the water, there's a meter. It's an electrical meter that's changing in Iryat Ranana. Every time. On Shabbat as well. It doesn't get turned off, yeah.
Where's this?
Yeah.
A radar on it. On the
Yeah.
top.
It doesn't get turned off.
The
Where's
water, I
that
thought
Here,
the water was
in our
not
city.
electrical. I thought the water
No.
was...
No, it's all now it is. And in Ranana,
Oh.
I talked to Rav Shabtai Yogo, and he did a lot of research on this actually. He said that the regular one right now in Iryat Ranana, it runs on Shabbat. But based on this, it's okay because it's, first of all, we don't see it happening,
You're not
and we don't even
measuring-
want
you're not
it.
measuring
I'd rather they didn't
how
measure
much
my
we
water.
are-
I'd rather they didn't measure my water. You can buy for like 150 shekel or something like that. You can buy a special device which basically takes a picture of your water level before Shabbat, and then it takes a picture afterward at the end of Shabbat, and then they do the hefresh, and then you don't have to worry about anything at all. But by default, you've got a meter that's measuring your water. But the minhag is to be makel on that, basically because of this, because it's an electrical system that's happening, but it's not something that you notice or care about or even want, frankly, on
I'd rather
Shabbat.
not have it measured.
There is another tshuva that we didn't bring over here. It's the Shevet HaLevi. It's on one of the sheets that I gave you guys. Shevet HaLevi argues that also when you're walking by a sensor and it turns on a light, but all you're doing is just walking. In other words, you're not trying to turn on the light; it's just happening. Mimela, that's okay. I also heard Rav Schachter on a tape say the same thing. That walking by a sensor that turns on a light, if it's not something that you want, in other words, if the street is somewhat lit and you don't actually need it, then it's okay. Even though that's not the minhag, right? Most people cross the street. That's what I grew up doing. But technically speaking, there's no problem with that happening because it's
The light
something that's
doesn't benefit.
totally
You don't get any benefit from that light.
yeah.
Okay, that it doesn't show you the way, then as long as it is light, then...
Right, even though it sounds like Rav Yaakov, that Rav Nachum Rabinovich would think that it's okay even if you do get benefit from it. It sounds like, because you're not part of the system really. Here, I have actually the English of the Shevet Levi. When a person does nothing but is just walking normally, not adding any actions for malacha, even if he causes the light to be lit or the like, it is obvious that as long as he doesn't actually intend to walk and turn on the light in, that we don't attach his normal walking to the result, and there's no act of malacha, because it's completely separate from you. The light turns on over there, and you're over here. You have nothing to do with it.
It's the intention.
Intention matters. If you intended to do it, then it would be attached to you. The argument for that would go as follows. We have a category that we mentioned before called davar she'eino mitkaven, right? Which means something that you didn't intend to do. Now, does that mean that anything you didn't intend to do is mutar on Shabbos? No. We have another category called psik reisha. Psik reisha means that, frankly, you may not have intended to do it. That may not have been your overt intention. But if the direct result of the action that you do is a malacha, then it's asur midoraita. So, for example, if you intended to just take this bench, right, and to carry it from one end of your lawn, of your grass lawn, to the other, that's because you want it on the other side. But on the way, you create a furrow in your lawn that's choresh, and that's midoraita, even though that's not your intention, because it's definitely going to happen, right? So that's psik reisha. Now, why is that? If I didn't intend for it to happen, then why is it a problem?
Because it's inevitable.
Okay, but so what? I didn't intend for it to happen. It doesn't rise to the level of melechet machshevet. So there are classically two explanations for this. They have nafkaminas. One is that we say the fact that you knew it was going to happen makes it so that we force you to have kavanah.
Right.
Okay? In other words, you did it, even though you knew it was going to happen, you knew for sure it was going to happen, you were aware it's going to happen, therefore, we give you kavanah. We force it on you. The other explanation is that because it always happens like that, it's like you did charisha. In other words, it's not that you dragged the bench from one end of your lawn to the other. No, you made a furrow in the ground. That's what you did. The action itself, it doesn't matter. You can't say that you didn't intend to do it, therefore it's not yours. You did it. That was what you did. We describe your action as that way. Now, in this case, where you were walking, even if you know 100% that the light's going to turn on, because the light's all the way over there, and the sensor is what turns on the light, and all you're doing is walking, it's considered by the Shevet Levi enough that it cannot be forced upon you. You can't force that kavanah on the person. No, my kavanah here is to walk. Leave me alone. I'm just walking. Walking is a normal thing to do. It doesn't always turn on lights walking, and therefore you can't ascribe to me that action. That would be his conclusion. All right, I think we're going to stop there. What remains in these sugyot is grama, if you guys are interested, which is the basis of a lot of the tzomet devices and some of the things that we do allow on Shabbat. And in terms of Shabbat, that's really it. So what do you guys think? You want to continue on that path and finish off with that? Or should we switch to a different topic, and if so, which? I know what you think.
Let's finish halakha bepatish. Let's complete the action.
So we do the grammar. Okay, so maybe we'll finish off with that next time, and see if there's anything else that's worth doing over there. There were some other technology in general
The thought
issues.
process is going to have to change over the next 20 years.
That's what this was about.
I know, but all the rabbis are going to have to start.
No, but what I'm saying. Okay, so you were not the first. I don't think he's going to change. I think this is his position. This is going to be his position.
In 20 years,
Deals with it.
everything's going to have motion sensing.
Good. So he's done with that. That's what he's done with. He's saying as long as it doesn't rise to the level of Melechet Machshevet, then we're going to allow it.
Okay.
But at the moment it rises to the level of Melechet Machshevet,
An argument like
good.
you take like Alexa or Echo or any one of those. Like you say, well, you should, but sometimes, I mean, it's quite, just a thinking a bit like left field over here, is that I would love to actually, we're not very good singers in our family, so we don't really sing. But imagine having like a nigun of Rav Karlebach or something at the Shabbos table.
So Jake brought that up. But so we had a few arguments about that. Yeah, we talked about that. So we made a few points. I think the main point that we made was, I don't think we can trust people with that. I don't mean to sound paternalistic, and it's not up to me to decide these things. But how are we gonna?
Themselves.
Why couldn't you have made the same argument? I want to write shiurim on Shabbos, so why don't we allow writing, right?
Yeah.
Now you're going to say because that's technically mutter and that's technically, but
Electricity,
Is that really the
listen,
point?
Electricity is very.
100%, that's why we have-
electricity is derived really is incandescent globes.
well, this is that's what we debated. But let's say
Yeah.
we agreed, which I do agree. But nevertheless, it's funny that you say revolutionary, meaning LED lights are new. So it's LED lights are new, and electricity itself as a usage is only 100 years old or so. So it's funny to talk about it being a revolution.
Anything.
I'll tell you what, electric shavers.
Basically,
Electric
it's going
shavers were
right
a big
against the
thing.
previous generation.
Generally, they go the other way. Generally, the revolutions go more machmir. But is there a precedent of something that was usher for many years, David?
Shaving ones.
That was usher for many
You
years.
cannot use a razor, you have to take a scissors. But now they invented a electric razor.
Okay.
with Scissors action.
Which gives you
Which some people will tell you is not correct either.
There's not many. They're not. Most people will agree that it's
No, but that's not
acceptable.
the same thing. They've not changed the halakha. They've found a way of getting round it. They've not changed the halakha.
Yeah, but now you walk around clean shaven.
You know, even if you even
yes,
if
there are
someone comes out
examples.
and say,
I'll give you an example.
even if you have to say that LED
Chadash.
lights are okay, they will never allow it because you can't start distinguishing, saying you're allowed to turn on an LED light but not an incandescent light.
That's what
Based on
Shlomo
that-
Zalman Auerbach said.
Based on that, they will never allow, even if someone would say, yeah, LED lights are perfectly okay, it'll never be allowed to use.
So you got a couple of rabbis that these younger rabbis, but with not as much heft. But
What about
yeah.
these new
I don't think they're widely accepted.
lights? You know what I'm talking about?
Which new lights?
The new light switches.
Oh, kosher switch. The kosher switch. So that was another one that we could deal with next week. Yeah, actually, that's a fun one. And Rav Asher Weiss actually has a tshuva about it. It didn't work. It didn't take off. It didn't take off. It should have been taken off by now. Yeah, I have quite a bit to say about that. No, it's nothing to do with Summit. Roseanne came out really harshly against it.
Or is it a switch on the appliance?
We'll talk about it. We'll talk about it. That's a fun one. That's a fun one. But I think one example of where it went in the Makel direction would be Chadash. So Chadash is, you know what Chadash is, Andrew? Well, you're not alone. You're not alone. So Chadash is an Isur Daraita, okay? It's a concept that comes up, it's in the Torah. And what it says is that harvested grain, is asur to eat until Tet Zayin Nisan of that year. Okay? In other words, if I were to harvest grain, which we don't do in Israel, all the grain in Israel comes from Chutz La'aretz, most of it. But if I were to harvest grain right now, I would not be allowed to eat that grain until the second day of Pesach. Tet Zayin Nisan. Also known as Ksirat HaOmer. That's the purpose of Ksirat HaOmer. You know how we do Ksirat HaOmer? Ksirat HaOmer is from the second day of Pesach because that's when they did Ksirat HaOmer, which is matir, the grain from that year. It turns the Chadash grain into Yashan. You've probably heard of Yashan. You just didn't know what it was. Because most Ashkenazim from Chutz La'aretz don't know what Yashan is. Why? Because we all eat Chadash in Chutz La'aretz. Because we don't care.
The next
You've never even heard of this before. Never even heard of it.
I have a family that they watch that.
Of course they do, because they're Sephardi.
Yes.
Because Sfaradim in Chutz La'aretz traditionally have been machmir throughout history on Chadash, and I've heard sociological reasons for this, more geographical regions, and Ashkenazim for the last about 1,000 years have traditionally been Mekel. They basically made the assumption that because they're not always sure whether the grain is Chadash or Yashan, wink wink, I'm being a little bit cynical right now, so therefore it's mutter because it's kind of like a Safek Yashan. That's generally the explanation given. Now, that's a big stretch.
Yeah,
Meaning
it
it's a huge stretch.
You can't go make it on a Deraita.
It's a Doraita. So they combine it with maybe it's only Dorabanan and Chutz La'aretz, which is not at all clear. Plus, it's a Safek. Plus, it was necessary. That's the classic explanation is that it was necessary because there was no refrigeration for 1,000 years, and the cycle, the agricultural cycle in most Ashkenazi lands, was not similar to the agricultural cycle in Eretz Yisrael and in the surrounding lands, and therefore it was almost impossible to wait for the Ksirat HaOmer time for Tet Zayin Nisan to eat grain. So the rabbis found a way. I'm not giving the only explanation for this, but they found a way through a few loopholes to find a way to make it mutter to eat what would normally be considered Chadash, whereas the Sephardim never had to avail themselves to the leniency because they lived in lands that were agriculturally similar to Eretz Israel, and therefore they didn't need it because basically the harvesting cycle was close enough to Tet Zayin Nisan that they harvested it, and then it was mutter. So that would be maybe an example where you find that a big revolution more in the Makel direction. There could be other examples.
These two rabbis who were in favor of using LED lights, are they also approving of shutting off LED lights? Or just turning on, or just
I
turning?
assume, yeah.
Yeah.
Why not?
Jackie, honestly.
Tov. Have a good night, everybody.
Laila Tov.
All right.
Take a cup out.
I wonder.